the grasslands. Now, I find these grassland areas very interesting because this is one of the few areas that I've found where you can actually see 3 separate species of blackbirds. I actually didn't see 2 of these blackbird species until I came to this area. Now, the first species of blackbird, they're actually all within walking distance of each other, which is very interesting because I usually don't encounter such an interesting phenomenon where you have 3 such closely related species that are very far apart. It's very windy, actually. I'm hoping you can hear me through this wind. And they're all within walking distance, like I said. Well, almost walking distance. I can walk to all 3. One of them is 3 kilometers away from here. I don't own a car, by the way, so I do have to pretty much walk or maybe take public transportation to all my birding sites. So yeah. Anyway, the habitat that I'm in now, it's kind of the grassy, hilly area. So you can see it's like very grassy, very hilly, and there isn't much water here. So you might wonder, if you're familiar with the red-winged blackbird, which is one of the 3 species, you might be wondering, like, why would there be blackbirds here? But actually, this is a site that's really favored by the brewer's blackbird. The brewer's blackbird doesn't seem to need as much water as the red-winged blackbird, which is pretty cool. The brewer's blackbird is also the most, in my opinion, out of all these 3, that is. There are many other blackbirds. They're all in the family Icteridae. The brewer's blackbird, in my opinion, is the most difficult of these 3 to get a photograph of because they don't tend to come down low by nature. See, with the red-winged blackbird, which is the blackbird with which I'm most familiar, I can kind of sit on the ground. And if you sit on the ground near a pond with reeds where the red-winged blackbirds, a pond that the red-winged blackbirds like, if you sit on the ground and you just wait there patiently, the red-winged blackbirds will start to ignore you. And if they ignore you, then you can kind of just sit there and get some really good shots. They kind of just fly around and they become very calm. That's one of the best techniques to get photos of a bird, by the way. You have to make sure that the birds are calm around you. You can't stress them out. And actually, that's one of the reasons why I'm not near the brewer's blackbirds, which are actually just about 500 meters from my location, maybe less, maybe 300 meters. I'm not sure. Sure is windy out here. The brewer's blackbirds, I went there yesterday and they kind of felt to me a little bit stressed. I don't know what it was, but if you're around birds a lot, you kind of get a feeling. You get a feeling for their mood. And I felt the brewer's blackbirds were a little stressed yesterday, so I am going to stay away from them for a while because I don't like to get too close to any of these blackbirds. They're kind of building their nests. I try and stay at a distance. I mentioned 2 blackbirds. There's the red-winged blackbird and the brewer's blackbird. Now, the 3rd blackbird is the bird I've seen most recently. I uploaded a video of it singing. It's the yellow-headed blackbird. I like the yellow-headed blackbird a lot because the yellow-headed blackbird has a really cool call and it just looks cool. It's interesting about the yellow-headed blackbird though, because the yellow-headed blackbird and the red-winged blackbird, you know, I always wondered, why don't I see yellow-headed blackbirds when I go to see my red-winged blackbirds? Because I think the usual pond that I go to is very small. Unfortunate for the birds. I mean, so little land is given to wildlife. So little land is given to birds these days compared to how much land is used for, in my opinion, useless stuff like golf courses. But the yellow-headed blackbird, when I actually went to see them, I kind of realized why I don't see them at the pond, because the yellow-headed blackbird does seem to prefer larger ponds. And they also, even when in the larger pond that's 3 kilometers away, that's where you can find the yellow-headed blackbirds, they do hang out in similar habitats to the red-winged blackbird, but they don't seem to go in exactly the same locations. I noticed the red-winged blackbirds tend to be more at the edge of the pond, and the yellow-headed blackbirds are more in the center away, and they kind of adopt different strategies, slightly different strategies. Even though they're superficially similar, they have similar modes of behavior. They both fly on reeds and they make calls. So like I said, that's very interesting to have 3 different species of blackbirds, all with the different characteristics and different photo opportunities. They all have different styles. You know, the red-winged blackbird has that beautiful red wing, very photogenic. The yellow-headed blackbird obviously is very beautiful with the yellow head, and the brewer's blackbird has that beautiful, it's the only one of the 3 with that beautiful white eye. I love white-eyed birds because white-eyed birds do have this really cool way about them, and they have that white eye, and their plumage, the brewer's blackbirds are the only ones with that blue plumage, you know, so that blue plumage is a rich blue. Rather, it's called a blackbird, but it's not really black. The red-winged blackbird does really have a more blackish plumage. Same with the yellow-headed blackbird, but the brewer's blackbird does tend to have that rich bluish hue, which makes it so cool. Anyway, I'm not even here for the blackbirds. I'm actually here for landscape photography. Yesterday, I noticed that the light was so cool coming through the new leaves on the trees that I wanted to try some landscape photography. Unfortunately, sometimes I do get good shots of those landscapes, but you know, the clouds, the sun is behind the clouds now, so I'm not getting that light that I was expecting, so that's why I'm talking to you about blackbirds, because I'm not getting that light that I was expecting, but it's kind of cool. I took a few landscapes down there. I have an 85mm lens here. I'm using my 85mm. Let me get that out and show you. See, I got the Viltrox 85mm f1.4. Let me hook that to my clip here. So there we go. There is the Viltrox 85mm f1.4. And I've been trying to get some landscapes with it. The sun was coming out a little bit, so it created some cool flare. Right now, it's kind of behind the clouds. Well, of course, there's a lot of landscapes you can take even with all sorts of light, but I was going after something very specific. But this place is just very cool right now. I love this park, by the way, the Nose Hill Park in Calgary, Alberta, because it's one of the largest city parks in the world. Most city parks are very small and tame. This one, as you can see here, let me show it to you, is just very cool because it's tame in the sense that they allow the grass to grow. There are deer here, porcupines, all kinds of cool stuff. Beautiful wildflowers here, and the grass is allowed to grow, the trees are allowed to grow. It's a very wild park, a very beautiful park. It's a little hard sometimes to get photos of stuff here. Typical landscapes, I would say not so much. Probably you can get more like intimate landscapes, you can get wildflower photos. This is a great time for wildflowers. If you want to get wildflowers here, the wildflowers start end of April, last week of April to mid-June is probably the best time, even though there are probably some blooming in August. But the prairie crocus, which is the first wildflower, already came up. I got some good photos of that, and it kind of died out now. It's mostly in the seeding form, whatever it does. And there are quite a few other flowers out now. Some small white flowers, yellow flowers. I'll tell you the truth, I don't know the names of too many flowers. I'm not really a flower expert. I know the names of some flowers. I had to actually look up the name of the prairie crocus. I'm really not so good with identification. In my opinion, the scientific classification system is useful, but I don't see the point in obsessing about it. I like to sometimes, you know, so almost not exactly, but almost give names of my own to things. Sort of like the bunch of yellow flowers, yellow bunch flower, I don't know. I just like to kind of be more holistic. I don't want to be too scientific. I think the rational identification of things using a scientific classification system is useful, but I do think it can go too far. For example, if I see a flycatcher, I know if you're a birder, you know that some flycatcher species are so similar. You know, I don't even bother to identify the difference between different flycatchers if there are 3 similar ones or something. I just say it's one of those flycatchers in that genus or something. It's one of those types of flycatchers. And I think really that sometimes it's better not to delve too much into that. It's useful for science, it's useful for conservation, but if you're a naturalist and you just want to connect with the natural world, I think it's much better not to focus too much on the science and focus more on experiencing nature yourself and approaching it with a more beginner's mind. Anyway, that's all I'll say today. That's my short trip out here looking for some landscapes and maybe some animals, and I'll just go around, walk around a bit more, and maybe I'll find a few more cool things to take photos of. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you again next time.